Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you once again to look back at all the action this weekend in the British Basketball League. It was a busy Friday night, so let's start there, and let's start in Newcastle, where the big story of the day was Jeff returning to full fitness, passing a late fitness test to do the commentary to save us from Dave's commentary.
Inane ramblings, I think, was the phrase you meant to use.
Indeed. Teddy Okorafor, more importantly, was absent for Cheshire. And this was a game that Newcastle really couldn't afford to lose. And they jumped out pretty early with a 13-0 run to take the lead.
Yeah, 45 minutes before I got the call.
I've
been there prepping, 2 hours, all that stuff. The disrespect was just in my face. What could one do? No, leave it to the pros or the semi-pros or whatever Jeff is. Yeah, it was an interesting game because it was a good game actually, because Newcastle actually played like they needed to win it. Played with a lot more energy defensively. And part of that, I think, was they made quite a significant alterations to the starting lineup. So early season, you're trying to mix guys in. It hadn't worked particularly well, so I went back to the guys who know the BBL. It was Fletcher, it was Defoe, it was Johnson, Sayers, and then the one American Shelton, and two new Americans coming off the bench, and that kind of allowed them to set a tone early, defensively, aided by the fact that Teddy wasn't playing, which means Cheshire had a lot to work out on the fly against a team who was 0-3 and had lost 2 home games in a row, which is not the best situation to be in. First play of the game, I think Shelton blocked 2 shots in the same possession. And if it wasn't for Bradley making a couple of tough threes in the early stage, Cheshire would have struggled to get a look early. That said, it was kind of a game of peaks and troughs a little bit, and the advantage Newcastle had in bringing Person off the bench was that the ball was in Fletcher's hands early. They weren't running anything different with him away from the ball. That let him set the tone, and everybody. When you're in any team, when you're in a rut or things aren't going right, you need to find the guys who are going to get you out of it, and then find who's going to join those guys to get you out of it. So with Newcastle, it was Fletcher and Defoe. Defoe had 15 and 8 in the first half. And Johnson then came along with the ride, and subsequently in the game, Williams and Person came along as well. But overall, I think it was a perfect storm for Cheshire. No point guard, figuring out rules on the fly, coming up against a motivated team who kind of sorted their internal stuff out by the looks of it, and gone back to what they know best. And Newcastle made that kind of run towards the end of the first quarter. And I think at that point it was tough because Cheshire weren't making shots.
Well, they had another 12-0 run in the second quarter, which included a Johnson 3, mainly from the free throw line. That got them out to 19. Knicks did finish the half reasonably well, a 9-2 run, and chipped away, but they were never really close enough to make a threat in the second half.
No, the end of the first half, I think Fletcher got tired. He played the whole second quarter. He played 18.5 minutes in the first half. Johnson put up a bad shot with 14 seconds to go, and they had the ball 14 seconds in the shot clock, and he put up a 3 with 7 seconds to go, and Cheshire ran down the other end, and Bradley got a dunk. And that kind of gave Cheshire a bit of momentum. And then the beginning of the third quarter, Cheshire basically had figured out that they were doing too much thinking and not enough attacking. So basically, with Shelton on 3 fouls, albeit he actually only committed 2 because the refs called the second one on somebody who was on him when he was about 12 feet from the play, which is quite entertaining if you watch the video. When they're trying to work out what number it is, there's too many 20s and 30s on the Newcastle team. But Shelton on 3 fouls wasn't looking to challenge as many shots, and I think Cheshire scored 7 consecutive possessions. Jules Dangakodo stopped trying to kind of figure out where everybody else was doing, and he just started attacking and getting to the rim and scoring. And at that point, halfway through the third quarter, it was like a 4 or 5 point game, and there was real jeopardy in the game. This is where Newcastle had been before. The last couple of games, they'd had chances. They'd played well at parts, but then they'd been unable to sustain it. But primarily, to be honest, Defoe, if I'm being blunt, Defoe's defense and Defoe's mentality. He played the first 15 minutes of the second half. So when the opposition made a run, he was in there to kind of shore up the defense. And on top of that, McSwiggan couldn't shoot the ball, couldn't hit the ocean. I think he missed 8 threes. He's 0 of 8, and Josh McSwiggan's a far better 3-point shooter than shooting 0 of 8 on quite a number of open looks. So Newcastle kind of pulled away, and it was hovering around 7-8 points. And then in the fourth quarter, the human enigma known as Kyle Williams kind of came to the party and
9 in a row he hit.
Yeah, made some really tough plays. And there weren't shots that Cheshire would have been particularly unhappy about giving up, but he has the ability to kind of make Spider-Man shots and strange shots that you think that's not going in, and it is. And then Pearson made a couple of threes, so those two joined the Newcastle the group, and Cheshire didn't have enough offense down the line. They struggled to finish inside as well. Ocherobi had 7 turnovers, and he doesn't really touch the ball much away from more than 6 feet away from the basket. So
they had 16 turnovers as a team, 24 points off turnovers as well, which when you lose by 20 is a lot.
Yeah, but ultimately, there's more jeopardy on the game for Newcastle than there was for Cheshire. That's a reality. It was a kind of a free swing for Cheshire, and missing the point guard, makes it very difficult this time of the season.
Fletcher with 13 points and 14 assists in that game. In the 7 years he's been in the BBL, there's actually been 22 games of 14 plus assists. There was another one that night coming up in a bit for Reese of London. He's had 9 of the 22 in that time.
Yeah, I think he got a bit lucky with the last one because there's only 0.7 seconds on the shot clock when Sayers made that 3, and he caught it, kind of wrapped it around his back and stepped back and shot it, and the refs allowed it to count. But even so, but he's just, I actually, it's tough because I know that Ian doesn't want to put too much onus on him and too much pressure on him. But, they're pretty good. It's difficult for them to get a better offense than when the ball is in his hands because he's able to create for others or get to the rim. But you have to be careful about maintaining his workload. And there were a couple of times in the fourth quarter where, after a couple of bad shots, you actually saw the irritation on his face, and it was like, give me the ball. So no, he has figured out how to get the ball to lots of guys, and he's got a lot of scorers there. So it'll be interesting to see how they go.
It will indeed. Now they've got that win on the board. So then second game of the night, Sheffield Sharks 68, Manchester Giants 85. And this game, watching it, there wasn't much in it. It was one of those, because I had all 4 games on at the same time. It didn't really catch my eye, this one, until the second quarter when the Giants were able to pull away.
Yeah, this was. I do love a good alliterative basketball name, and this was Martavius McKnight's coming out party. Martavius, what a name! I mean, that deserves, all name. That's in the kind of the fabulous Flannoy kind of Martavius McKnight. Alliteration. Long first name. Well, that really is in the top 10. But this guy, I thought it was interesting. Firstly, that. Again, Lloyd's mixed up his starting lineup, so he has Tariq Armstrong at the point, like he had last week, and McKnight starting, and then have the benefit of the British guys, Josh Steele and Dan Clark and Jamel Anderson as well. And Dan Clark basically plays as the 5, which gives him a ton of spacing. And also now they've got kind of a little bit of a hierarchy in their team now. You can see it developing, which is interesting. Just a little bit of who, because he's got a lot of players. Most teams when they start a BBL season are kind of already fully formed, insofar as if you've got a BBL budget, you're not going to be spending it on multiple players to beat each other out of a job in camp.
Yeah.
You're not going to have any situations where you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 guys looking for 2 or 3 guys minutes, because they haven't got the money. You want to get the best quality players you can. And if you're duplicating at positions, it's very difficult. Manchester have had a little bit of that this year because they've had all the British guys, but they've had the 4 Americans as well. And Jack Hudson and Jordan Whelan holding over as well, brought in Will Saunders, so they've had 11 players. It's taken them a little bit of time just to kind of figure out their roles, but I think they might have it now. In this game, kind of Jordan Whelan missed out because he only played 5 minutes. And that's one of the things that Lloyd's going to have to manage throughout the year as to who, as to how can you get everybody the minutes that they need. But they're actually really talented. They got a lot of talent there. The cohesion and the fact that obviously they're kind of based around Dan Clark, and everything is based around the ability of him to space the court and the gravity he has on the court in relation to how you defend him. It creates space for everybody else, and then everybody else can get to their spots. But also Josh Steele is a really interesting one because he's played for GB. People tend to forget, not in the last couple of cycles, but he's been there before. He's been in the system, and he went across to Spain from Surrey, and Lloyd obviously knows him. I assume he coached him when he was a kid. And he's given them a lot of rope in this team. He's having a significant impact in this team, and he's playing kind of like an American two guard. So it'll be interesting to see how far he can go, because I'm sure that the GB guys will be looking at him. Sorry, that's a bit of a digression on the game. I watched it back on Saturday morning, and again, nothing really grabbed me in the first half about the game. It was, we know Sheffield won at Newcastle last week, and I was thinking, are they going to be ready for it in the same way? I thought at one point Bennett Cook looked really, really down on himself, like he's going to throw himself off a bridge. He wasn't getting any calls. He just looked really in his own head. And I think they've got issues, with that, because Delpesh and Cook obviously can't play together. Only one of the other can play. And ultimately, Sheffield just struggled a bit for offense. They have guys who can score, lots of guys who can score, and they are, let's get it clear, they run some nice stuff, and when they get their shots, they attack, they can score, but they don't necessarily have an absolute lights out scorer. The point guard, I think, is really the point guard. Aaron Anderson really, kept them in this basketball game. At one point, he was, from memory, from Saturday morning, watching it, he was playing them on his own. In my mind, I almost thought to myself, look, he's making plays. He's making plays for everybody else. He's looking to finish. But I don't think he's a guy who's ever going to be looking to go off for 30 in a game. He's a table setter. He's a smart point guard who knows what he's doing and wants to get the ball to his other guys. And they're going to have to kind of step up. And in Newcastle, it was John Williams who stepped up, Jonathan Williams. At some point, it's going to, Kipper Nichols is going to have multiple 20-point games this season for that team, for them to score. And then, they're going to have to get, significant points out of Marcus Delpesh as well, because they don't, as I say, they don't have anybody who is going to say, other than Williams maybe, who's going to be, give me the ball, I'll get you a bucket. And Williams is a rookie, so he may not be in a situation where he's in a position to do that. He's going to be up and down and with the team. So take us through the game, because I've watched it. And
Clark hits 3 threes early in the second half. Giants edge ahead, and then McKnight hits 6 in a 10-1 run at the end of the third quarter to make it 14. And they were pretty comfortable. They had a 12-4 finish as well.
That's back to SMB 1, isn't it? Which is, you better find out how you're going to guard down Clark.
Well, can I just pick up on that, because I looked at the stats this morning. For Dan Clark, and he's 8 of 10 for 20 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists in 23 minutes and 24 seconds for a 35 efficiency. And I'm quad boxing. This game isn't that close, so I didn't really watch it as closely as I did a couple of the other games. So I thought, I'm just going to jump onto Synergy and look at Dan Clark and see how did he get his points out of this thing. And I just went on Synergy and played his plays back to back. And we talked about, what are you going to do with Dan Clark? Well, if you want an example of what not to do with Dan Clark, that was it. Because there was a few, almost everything, the pick and pop, the pick and roll, the handoff, they defended it all terribly. There was a few, there was one, I remember, he's setting 2 screens. For the second screen, the defender's not even there. He's gone off to the baseline. So Clark's all on his own. He then wanders out to the 3-point line, all on his own. He's standing there for about 10 seconds, and then finally the ball comes to him, and he knocks down the shot. And there was 2 or 3, just miles away from him, and you just cannot. If you're going to defend him like that, he's going to get a triple-double in 20 minutes.
It's a foul shot, isn't it? It's a foul shot for him. That 3-point shot at the top of the key. I actually just you've flashed me memory back as well, because he got his first 2 looks in the first 3 minutes of the game.
Those were the 2 he missed.
And those were the 2 he missed. And I
Yeah.
remember looking at it and thinking it's going to be a long night because
Yeah.
when you get the good looks early, you might not go in, but they'll start going in late because you get yourself into that rhythm.
Yeah.
He's so important to their ecosystem. But they didn't find a way of impacting him. And
so just in case there's anybody BBL coaches listening who haven't gone on Synergy yet, Clark is number 2 in points per game in shooting, number 1 in catch and shoot, number 3 around the baskets bracket, not post up, number 2 in long shots. You cannot give him space.
Well, I don't want Dan to think that we're telling everybody what to do. It's a bit harsh. They need to figure it out for themselves to a certain degree. But this guy is he's a different. We talked about being the best shooter, best British big guy shooter ever. So you need to give him, put some respect on his name and actually defend him like he is, because otherwise he's going to kill you. And then it comes back to, because then the point you made at the end of the third quarter is McKnight, and that's probably when McKnight clicked with me when I was watching him. Thinking, oh, this guy is knowing how to get to his spots. That was the big thing, and able to find his way to get a basket when he needed it, and it takes a while. It takes a few games for hierarchies to develop within a team. So for the team to know where the ball is going to go and who's going to get it. And as I say, I think they're getting there with that team, which they've got a lot of room for improvement as well, which is a bit scary for everybody else.
Well, let's shift it on to Bristol Flyers 67, Leicester Riders 75. Josh Rogers back for the Flyers in this one. A tight game. It was really when Leicester's second unit came out that they were able to get themselves in front. They had a 13-0 run around that second quarter break. Whelan, Walker, McKenzie scoring all the points in that, and that opened them up the lead.
I'm done foul of the season award early on in that game, I'm afraid. The 13-0 run, or just most of the 13-0 run, coincided with the point guard Miller.
Yeah, Miller.
I can't remember his first name. Sorry,
Mike
Miller. That's the one. Yeah, sorry. Mike Miller picking up 3 fouls in the first half.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the first one, but the second one, it was probably 3 or 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. He picked up Crandall full court on a made basket inbounds, and before the ball was inbounded, he was sticking his hand under his arm. Literally 92 feet from the basket, right? And I'm thinking, what are you doing? And I don't even think Gino actually hooked him. I don't think he did. He just committed almost like an "I am here" foul. I'm guarding you now. Just so you know, that's fine, but that's your second one. If it's your first one, that's fine, but that's your second one. So Andreas had to sit him down at that point, and he was giving it to the bench, all this stuff like he hooked me and all that stuff. And I'm watching it back, thinking, no, he didn't. And then Andreas knows at this point that that he's a very important player for their team, because Corey, I think is it Corey Samuels, the third guard, is pretty inexperienced to come up against the Leicester team. And they went on, obviously, as you say, Leicester went on the run. I'll get to them in a minute. And he puts Miller back in, and then Miller commits another foul about 2 minutes into the third quarter. I think it was in semi-transition. It was miles away from the basket. He wasn't trying to make a play or anything. And he's sitting down with 3 fouls, and and that really impacted Bristol's offense. Leicester's offense was, as we are beginning to remember it being, very clinical. Little bit of obviously an issue with Nelson Henry, who got hurt later on in the game, but didn't look at his healthiest early in the game, if I'm honest. I thought he missed a few layups around the rim, a little bit flat-footed compared to what he normally is. So I don't know if he was carrying something before he did his ankle.
It looked like, as you say, it looked like he'd land, because it was 2 minutes into the second half. He'd gone up, missed, got his own rebound, and went up again. And it looked like it was on the second one. He landed on either somebody's foot or awkwardly or something, and he didn't come back, and obviously didn't play Sunday either.
Yeah, but I just didn't think he was quite right in the first half. He's not a guy who shoots 3 of 11. No. He's 7 or 8 of 11 because he's that good, that efficient around the basket. So that would suggest there's either something fantastically impressive in the way he's being defended, or the physical characteristics of that, or alternatively, he's just not quite either in rhythm or he's not quite physically right. But apart from that, after Zach Jackson in the starting lineup, I think if we rewind to a couple of weeks ago, that might have been mentioned. And he's a really underrated guy. I mean, he is, he is Mr. Underrated in the league. Because they were really good with him last year before he went down. Then they had to bring Heron in, and that kind of threw them a little bit. But he's so efficient. I don't know if I think he's smart from watching him play, but he's efficient. And he fits what they do like a glove. So he actually started this game and he finished this game. So that's a pretty significant endorsement from the coach. And then that gave them the ability to bring McKenzie off the bench. And McKenzie is, the kind of guy you love to have coming off the bench because he can score and he can facilitate. And he's got enough point guard chops about him to be able to run a unit. But also, if you need him to, he can fill it up if he feels he needs to. And if you're going to leave him open, he's going to shoot it. So I really like the balance that gave them with him coming off the bench, and they've kind of slipped Adekoya into the backup 4 role, and then they're kind of toggling Whelan and Jackson, at the 3. So they looked efficient. I don't think they're all there yet. They don't run as much as they used to with this team. They don't get as many run outs. They haven't got Jamel running the floor for 2 or 3 easy dunks a game, which is one of the things that they lost. But they're all guys who know their own game, and they're all guys who are committed to maintaining the spacing on the court. And obviously, it's a lot of it is going to come. And now Nelson Henry's hurting a little bit. A lot of it is going to come down to what they get out of Mo Walker. And if Mo Walker has a season to the level, has an uninterrupted season to his own level, and I'm quite sure he will play efficiently while he's playing. I've got no problem with that. He will be good. But if they can get a whole season out of him, then that makes him a very tough group. And we haven't seen, a little bit like Fletcher, actually. Crandall hasn't started yet. He's playing and he made a few plays. Made a few plays down the end of this game, but he's like Fletcher. He's looking around saying, what have I got here? How's it working? How's it going to fit together? What's the league all about? The guys who've been there before tend to know that they're playing in an 8-game cup series. And that this is the beginning of a very long year. But the guys who haven't been here before are trying to prove themselves because they're playing for jobs. And that's quite right too. So there is a slight kind of difference in that mentality. So that was over. I didn't talk about the rest of the game, but I didn't ever think they were going to lose that game.
No, Leicester were ahead for much of it, but you couldn't really put it away. And then Miller helped bring Bristol back and tied the game up at 64. And then Leicester, a loving 3, and Leicester hit the next 9 points in a row, and that was pretty much that.
I mean, the one Bristol, I'm more excited about Bristol this year than I have been for multiple years because they are really fun. I think that's going to be fun to watch. They have the guards, Miller, Jacob, and Evans are 3 really explosive players. And their bigs are serviceable, certainly. I think Delpesh has come back more skilled from Germany, and Simmons is up and down a little bit, but I think he's a rookie, and he's going to have that. But he can. I think he can. He's got the size and the athleticism, I think, to last. So I'm really enthused about what they're going to bring when it comes to the cup, because I think they can beat anybody in the league. So they can beat anybody any given night. Leicester. I mean, they're only playing. I need to apologise. Last time up, I said they were playing 10 guys. They're actually only playing 9 because I can't count. Or because he subs them so often, it's so confusing. So it's obviously it's his fault, not mine. The only thing they're probably going to there's a little kind of quandary in my mind about Connor, because Connor generally plays best when he's needed. When he's wanted, when they need him, he turns up and he wins games for them or makes plays for them. And now you kind of got McKenzie taking some of his shots if McKenzie coming off the bench, and it might take someone to get injured for Connor to get going, if you know what I mean. I think he only played 15 minutes in that game, But that's a nice problem to have.
Mm.
That's a nice problem to have. So yeah, they I think the 2 weeks that they had off have helped them, and I can see a kind of a upward, a progressive trajectory
Yes.
for Leicester.
17, 4 and 6 for Evans, 18 and 8 for Delpesh was the lead for the Flyers. Crandall 13, 4 and 5, not very efficient 13 to be fair. Mo
Yeah, I
Walker
think
plus 23, Mo
plus,
Walker.
yeah, plus 23. Well, there you go. I think Gino actually chucked up a couple about his first 3 shots were kind of threes, which was kind of like, let's see how I'm feeling tonight, almost, you know, because if he's not attacking and not dribbling, he's not necessarily showcasing his best stuff, as it were. So when he's the first 2 or 3 times he catches the ball, he's basically letting it go. You're thinking, you know, he's just looking at the lie of the land. Yeah.
Right. London Lions 88, Surrey Scorchers 73. Andrew Lawrence back fit, finally on a BBL court. 18 minutes he played, 2 of 9 shooting, 9 points, 6 assists, +5 in a 15-point loss, which says something about what happened when he was on the court. And Jameson, we were a bit concerned when he went down last week, was back out there. And I don't know if he was quite 100%, but he was certainly out there contributing. But they got punched in the mouth, really, 13-2 down after 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, I put aside about 45 minutes to watch this on Saturday afternoon, and it wasn't on the BBL player. So rather than putting aside another 45 minutes to see if it ever came on the BBL player, I kind of figured I'd just look at the box score. So there you go. And also the flow of the game, because I picked up on some of the tweets in relation to the flow of the game. But I think they were down 25 at half time or something. And at that point, you know, the reality is at this point in time, there is no jeopardy in the Southern group. We got 3 teams who are better than the other 2 teams.
Yeah.
Bristol, London, and Leicester are far better than Surrey and Plymouth. And one of Surrey or Plymouth will go through in almost certainly in 4th place. What that means is it's very difficult to take too much from the games that are being played. You know, might be different 2 or 3 weeks down the line, and certainly if Andrew Lawrence is at Surrey for any period of any significant period of time and on the court, you know, he changes their ceiling very, very quickly. But with unfortunately with Surrey, that's a legitimate question to ask. You know, you know, will he be there for long? Will Robert Gilchrist show up? Or sorry, not show up. Will he be healthy? Will he be able to play? And secondly, even if he is there for long, will Surrey keep him? Or will he, you know, will he be? Sorry, beg your pardon. Will he be hurt? They haven't got anything like the horses to match what London have got. London have had a 2.5 month pre-season. Surrey have got guys who are literally just meeting each other a week ago, insofar as on the court. And I mean, when we talk about the cup as a pre-season, I think it for Surrey and probably for a lesser extent for Plymouth, whilst they're waiting for their visa situation to sort itself out, I think it probably is in relation to, and with it being a kind of a semi pre-season for Surrey and Plymouth, that then allows it to be a pre-season of sorts for the other 3 as well.
The other 3, yeah.
Because as I say, there's no jeopardy now. It's different than the North. Because at this point in the North, it's quite feasible that you could not have 3 wins and not qualify. In fact, that's probably likely, and the points difference comes into it. And there's even a ridiculous scenario where you could have 4 wins and not qualify, and everybody's tied on 4 and 4.
Yeah.
You know, that's still out there.
Then,
but that means that
then they'll curse themselves for dribbling games out, won't they?
At that point, I would expect you to be doing a Boadicea style lap of Leicester on your horse with a flag, you know, with points difference marked on it, you know, and waiting for your disciples from the BBL, from all over the BBL fraternity in this country to join you. But if it happens, it happens. Wouldn't it be lovely? Yeah. So yeah, I'm afraid very little to say. I think from what I can gather from some of the tweets, London rather shut up shop in the second half and glided through the second half without really being in any jeopardy of losing the basketball game. And overall, I'm not sure it's a game I'd have been particularly keen on paying £28.50 to watch.
No, it was cruising through the game, and as you say, Surrey with the 9-0 start, and then they did manage to get it to single figures at one point, but that was an anomaly more than anything else. Flurry of threes midway through the fourth quarter. Dirk Williams with 20 points, 4 of 8 from 3-point lines. Hamrick actually 20 points in 26 minutes off the bench for Surrey.
Yeah. I mean, two things. I'm staying away from London because we will talk about that in the next game because that's really the first time I've had the chance to look at them. But what is it with all these players with Junior at the end of their name? I mean, Dirk Williams is now getting Dirk Williams Junior. Well, you know, was he not Junior last year or the year before?
He must have been. It's never been listed as. Some of them, when they come over, you know from day one that they are something junior.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know the senior, so Junior means nothing to me. You know, I'm not a fan of juniors. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Let's move on to today's games. Sorry, I think this one will be quick. Plymouth City Patriots 58, Leicester Riders 109. No Nelson Henry for Leicester, no Okora still for Plymouth.
No Dusha either.
Yes, sorry, still no Dusha as well. Well, I mean, Leicester 13-5 run, got up by 11 and just kept on going, really.
Yeah, I watched the first 16 and a half minutes until I was happy that my £40 was going to be £40 bet was what I spent. And cashed out a couple of quid short just so I didn't have to watch the rest. No, I mean it's tough. You know, well, we laugh about it, but it's tough. I mean, you know, Plymouth are doing everything right insofar as there's every prospect that there wasn't going to be a basketball team in Plymouth.
And there was a good crowd in there, and they
stuck
with the team to the final buzzer. You
Absolutely.
weren't there to see it, but they were still going pretty loud towards the end.
Yeah, and so you know, I'm not going to come on here and start slating this, that, or the other about Plymouth. They're not at this point in time. They're overmatched, particularly overmatched without their 7-foot centre and their 6-foot floor general. I mean, if you're going to take a point guard and a centre of any team in this league, I think Paul Nicholson said in the commentary, it's tough. You take it out of that team, you know, it's brutal. It's brutal because that's their shot creation and that's their.
Well, the reality is, if you take the point guard and the centre out of Leicester, you've got Connor Washington and Mo Walker.
Yes.
As the backup. Yeah. That's the comparison, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you could go down. Yeah, you could go down most teams, and there's something else there, and that's the advantage you have when you have 3 or 4 imports. Let's be blunt about it. You know, Plymouth have some decent British players. They have guys who can play, but they don't have the depth of it, and they don't have the ability to bring in at this point. You know, the 3 or 4 imports that mean that 7-man team becomes an 11-man team and gives them a little bit of capability, but they're there, and you know the fact that, and you know that PJ is proud, and you know that PJ won't like what happened, but you also know that PJ is realistic, and PJ will know that there's only so much he can accomplish in a short period of time. And you wouldn't expect Leicester to stop. Leicester aren't going to stop. Leicester are just going to keep playing. That's what they do. They're incredibly consistent. They run the stuff, and they get the shots they want. And if Plymouth got lucky, maybe Leicester missed a few shots that they otherwise would have made. They didn't. You know, they made shots. Zach Jackson was 6 or 7 from 3, I think.
Yeah,
you know,
5 points.
You know, and the rest of them all made shots as well. Loving's making shots. You know, Crandall started off hitting 2 threes, and you know, at that point you think this is going to be a really long night for these guys. But what they have is a shot window there. The players that they have. Denzel Ubiaro has the ability now to be kind of the Dwayne Wade figure on that team, and you know, and have the ball in his hands a lot and improve in that way.
22 and 8 he had.
22 and 8, and he had 17 earlier. I think he said 17 the first half, and so hopefully they'll get the chance to have some reinforcements. But you know, it's not an indictment of anybody down there. You know, it's the opposite. It's actually to their eternal credit that they're still there. You know, that if people want to point fingers at why they're losing by 50, it's because they had a bunch of owners who overspent and then decided halfway through the season that they didn't fancy overspending anymore and dropped everybody in it. And that's without knowing the specifics. And I don't know the specifics, but being around British basketball long enough to know that that's how it kind of works. Yeah. And generally in those circumstances, your team either goes under and you don't see them ever again. In a dim and distant past, they would move around every year. You know, so Glasgow would go to Kingston, would go to Portsmouth, whatever. or at the very best you can do is that you kind of retrench, dig in, try and maintain what goodwill you've got from the local community, and try and build it up again gradually. And that's what they're doing. So all power to them, even though it's in Plymouth, even though it's 400 miles from Newcastle, still all power to them.
Indeed.
And you know, so good. I'm nothing to say about Leicester, actually, only that they played Adekoya as a kind of their small ball 5 for a while, which I thought was a little, because they only had the one centre. So I thought that was a little bit interesting.
And then Dooku got 17, 18 minutes. Yeah. And to be fair, he was on before it got away. Those weren't 17 minutes because they were up 50. He was on relatively early.
When they're up 30, yeah. Well, no, yeah. No, you can play. Look, these guys, if you can't play in these games, you can't play. You know, and you're not sitting on the Leicester Riders bench unless you can play. Right, but people, you know, so that, you know, we've gone past the time whereby, you know, it was 8 players and 2 local league kids. It's not that anymore. These guys are coming out of programs where they're being coached. They might be 18, 19, they might have come from a college, and if Victor and Dooku can get Rob's confidence and play, then there may well be a time, you know, down the line where they need him. You know, I go back to my first year, I think, on the bench in Newcastle. We had a lad called Ross Wilson who the year before he went to college, he went to Rice, and he was 17, 18 out of our Hoops for Health program, had come up through the junior rank, 6'6", athletic. He wasn't ready to play, to play at the level that we need him to play at, but he won a game for us. He made a jump shot against Sheffield with about 55 seconds to go when we had, I think, in triple overtime or double overtime, when we had 3 or 4 guys fouled out. He stepped up and he knocked down a 15-footer at the far end of Sports Central, so I remember it. And that's what these, you know, ultimately that's what they're for. Now, these guys are getting better because they're practicing. They're practicing every day, and they will have their own career paths, whether they're going to America, whether they're playing on pros here. And so, you know, it's nothing to sniff at when, if you're good enough to get, if he's good enough to get on the Leicester Riders bench, then he's doing all right.
Matt Cunningham, of course, the classic.
Matt Cunningham, Dan, outstanding.
Was it Aris he hit the game winner against? It was somebody like
that. I think he came off the bench 8 seconds beforehand, all the the ball, memory. And then the whole of Crystal Palace, because it's one of the few games that was on grandstand at the time. And I watched it on the Saturday afterwards, and the whole of Crystal Palace just kind of exploded. Most of the Greeks probably trying to trash it. Memory, but Matt Cunningham, absolutely.
Right, I said we wouldn't spend long on that. We somehow got to Matt Cunningham, so I don't know what happened there, but the people would expect nothing less from Sunday night.
I would hope not. Yeah.
So London Lions 94, Bristol Flyers 85. Speaking of European games, as we were with Matt Cunningham, as the Lions begin their FIBA Europe Cup campaign this week, they're in Groningen on Wednesday, and I just wondered, watching this game early on, whether they might have had an eye on that.
Firstly, I absolutely am incredibly impressed with your pronunciation of Groningen.
Well, I'm not sure it's right.
No, to me it's Groningen, but I do think it has got that kind of umlauty thing. Which, they don't know what they call it in Holland, but they call it in German. Above the O to make it into an ear. So impressive. Maybe they played on Friday night, they won by easy. What was interesting for me was it's the first time I've had any real look at them. Obviously we watched them in the European game that they played, but that wasn't, they weren't ready. They had 2 other guys who were playing, who aren't playing now, in Teague and the Lithuanian guy. And they've played a few more games now. On top of that, some of their players are putting up some numbers. And Reece was the one that got me, because I wanted to watch Reece because obviously, as you say, he had 16 and 14. Yes, he had 14 assists on Friday night. And you think, well, hang on a minute, this guy's probably 6'4", 6'5". He's a proper size. Yeah, he's having 14 assists. So what kind of guy is he? What kind of player is he? And how would you defend him? That's always the first thing I want to look at. If I was coaching against him, how am I going to defend him? And it was a really intriguing watch. The game, I mean, Bristol came out and destroyed them on the offensive glass. I mean, Kelly wasn't ready for Del Pesh and the other guys on the offensive glass, and they were really impactful early on. And then Evans got going, and Evans can clearly shoot the basketball. and Miller got to the rim, and Bristol went up relatively early. But the thing that intrigued me was the first half. I think Reece played the first 16 minutes of the first half, and everything went through him. Every possession. Washburn, who's a talented player, didn't touch the basketball. He's on the wing. Dirk Williams was coming off screens, and occasionally he would get the pass, but it was quite clear to me that at that point, he actually reminded me, again, I'm going back again, he reminded me of Trey Moore.
Oh, right.
Right? Not in the mindset, not in the game.
Yeah.
But Trey would always look for the assist.
Yeah.
He would always be looking to throw the ball to either score or to get the assist, and he wanted to get his guys the ball where they were definitely going to score. So he was definitely going to get the assist. And and he's more Trey's. I don't think Isaiah Reece is quite as bad as wheeling round to the scorers table, that's making sure they get it. As happened one day at Worthing, where I think he got about 17 and they gave him 9, and then I had to deal with that on the way home. But I do remember that game at Worthing. But he has everything insofar as you can see in the screen roll. He has the various options. He's tall, so he can pass over people, and he likes to throw the lob. And obviously he's got a 7'1" guy who can
jump out the building. It helps.
Jump out the building, yeah. But against that, that means it's almost like a BBL James Harden. The ball was in his hands a lot. It was in his hands a lot, and as I say, there wasn't much, because when he was making his plays, he was either throwing the lob or he was holding on to the last minute to get it out to his guys. There wasn't much ball reversal beyond that. So some of the other guys weren't really coming in the game, and he came out. He was better. They were better when Lockhart came in. Now Lockhart was plus 20 in this game, and Andre, one of my guys, but Andre himself didn't play well enough to be plus 20.
Plus 19
plus 19, sorry.
In 16 minutes.
In 16 minutes. But the dynamic of the whole team changed because they had a secondary ball handler in the game, which was spacing the court, spreading the court differently, and also in the third quarter as well. So when they made their runs in this game, remarkably, it was with the guy who had all the talent and was able to make all the shots. He actually wasn't on the court.
Well, let's just get to that. Let me just clean up the second quarter, because Evans with 3 threes and Delpesh led the Flyers to the last 17 points of the first half to lead by 11 at halftime. 17 is the biggest run against the Lions since Newcastle last year. The Lions didn't score for the last 5-18, but I want to get to the end of the third, because they led by 10 with 3 to play. And then he came with Tawia, Lockhart, Ward Hibbert, and I forget the 2 Americans that were out there, but it was those 3. Washburn was one. It was those 3, and the game turned there with a 12-0 run.
Yeah, well, just at the end, that point by the end of the second quarter is valid, because that's when Reece got tired. Everything had gone through Reece the whole first 15 minutes. Then he got tired, and no one else was in any rhythm at all. And they couldn't. Vince had to bring him back with a minute and a half to go, but he was still tired, and no one else was in any rhythm. And that 17-0 run happened. And this kind, as you say, the same. They weren't flowing at the beginning of the third quarter. But what happened was, when he came out the game, Washburn suddenly became involved in the game. Dirk Williams started making shots from everywhere. He kind of took it upon himself to say, okay, I'm scoring now, and the ball was being touched around the perimeter. It wasn't just the screen and roll game time and time again, until that. And I think Vince held it off until about 5 minutes before he brought him back. But then, just like Trey, he was a closer. And this is where kind of the similarity came to us. Bristol had this game. Evans was shooting. Evans making everything. London weren't particularly locked into the things they had to do. To them, it's a game of limited consequence, if any. Let's be honest. They know they're going to be in the top 3. They probably expect to be in the top 2. They got a European game on Wednesday, and they played on Friday night. So from their perspective, their mind, they would be excused if their mind wasn't entirely where it needed to be in relation to this game. And Bristol had a shot at it, but they couldn't get enough stops at the end, and I'm afraid they didn't. They allowed Dirk Williams Jr. to keep London in the game, until Reece came back in the game, and then Reece made some plays at the end. But with his 11 assists, he had 7 turnovers, I think. And I think that they're the ones where he was reaching. He was just reaching for the assists, for the lobs, because Delpesh and Co. and Simmons, they kind of saw them coming at the end. They were getting up and deflecting them. But he made a big 3, about a minute and a half to go.
Yeah, a minute to go, he made a 3, and then Evans missed. Reece goes to the line, 1 for 2, but Washburn with a big offensive rebound and 1. Yeah.
And that's the game. That was the game. And crazily, and I actually like Washburn a lot. I liked him when I saw the first the European game. He was the one guy who kind of stood out for us, not in what he did, but what the things he didn't do, just the way he was on the court, just had the feel of a guy who knows how to play the game. He never touched the basketball in the first half. I looked at his stats because I was watching the game. I checked the stats, and he was like 0 of 1 with no real impact. He ended up with a double-double. And there's a lot of guys in this league who I've been around and who I've seen play who don't touch the ball in the first half. Their heads aren't there for the second half. It's like, these guys are going to do it without me. What's the point? And he, I like his game a lot. Interesting. That's actually the other thing that came to me. A little question for you. I thought, given that you try and anticipate most of them. 5 current players in the league. Only 5 current players in the league that can claim to have had me as a coach.
Really?
Only 5 current players in the league.
Gosh.
And that's not including kids.
Yeah.
Can you think of them? I'll give you some time.
Well, there's Defoe, Fletcher, Lockhart.
3. That's right.
Okay. And now. Give me a minute to think about it.
You have it at the end. It's all right.
Yeah.
They've all played today.
They've all played today.
No, sorry. They all played this weekend. One played today, and another one played on Friday night. But anyway, the other 2.
Okay. So let me just wind this off. We'll start the next game, and then I'll see if I can get it. So Evans, 7 3-pointers, that ties the club record in the BBL. Doug McLaughlin-Williams did it twice in 2014-15, making 7 threes.
That guy could shoot. McLaughlin-Williams. He was in bold print underlined on the scouting report. I remember that was the first year Bristol were in the league.
It was, yeah.
It was, and he was a serious shooter. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me. I think Evans
Delpesh, 18 and 8, all offensive rebounds, and I've gone back to 2008, and I cannot find anybody with no defensive rebounds and more than 4 offensive rebounds.
Okay, we need a I've had enough of this. We need a klaxon, right? We need a klaxon on this podcast, whereby when you produce something like that, I can go a little motif which says, obscure stat of the day. Oh, that is brilliant. I love it. No one more than 4. Wow.
No more than 4, no.
I think the problem was there weren't that many rebounds for him to get because they were throwing so many lobs. He was deflecting the lobs as opposed to getting the rebounds. But anyway, I like that. That's good.
So let's move on to Manchester. And this is where I realized I've not put the score down on my piece of paper here. Top of my head, I think it was 83-90, the final score.
Yeah, something like that.
Glasgow Rocks. And again, this one, watching 2 games simultaneously, this was pretty close, really. There wasn't much in this until the second quarter.
Yeah, I kind of focused on this one because obviously Cheshire started later, and then this one got kind of close, and you would get to watch the fourth quarter at Cheshire anyway, so I kind of focused on this from the beginning. It was really quite a well played game, actually. Dan Clark is a big thing. I mean, obviously he hurt himself in the first few minutes, which I didn't see because I was watching the London game at that point. When I turned on with 7 minutes to go in the first quarter, then Lewis is out there already and Clark's not there, and I couldn't see him on the bench. So I was thinking he mustn't have been playing. Check the stats. You find out at that point he's probably gone back to the locker room. Then he comes back in the game in the middle of the second quarter, and he is visibly limping. And I don't think he was in the game for long at all. Visibly hobbling to get him down the court, and he didn't come back on the court. So that's a big difficulty for Manchester to deal with, because it does throw their rotations out. It throws to a certain degree their system out, because he's a focal point, as we've talked about before. Notwithstanding that, they did okay in staying with Glasgow. Glasgow, really impressive. Really impressive. I've talked about the point guard a lot, and he was quite passive in this game. He still ended up with close to a triple-double. Their wings play with ebullience and athleticism. Harris, and I think many count as a wing the way he plays. Hillsman's got a wide body and can score the basketball. And then they kind of have this Fraser Jack Domi tag team. And you throw in the player coach who can come off the bench and make threes in 8 minutes. And just, you see the way the team responds to him. And young Fraser Malcolm, who's also playing the backup four and giving them good energy, and Johnny Bunyan, who can come in and spell the other guards when they need to. They are really solid. And I didn't think they were going to lose this game. I always thought they were going to win this game. Maybe because they were Manchester had 3 wins. So kind of, again, the jeopardy was more there for Glasgow than it was for Manchester. Maybe because Dan Clark wasn't out there. But Manchester are always just stretching a little bit for their offense. They got it there, and it was McKnight primarily again, double M. M&M, what do you want to call him?
M&M, there you go.
Peanuts, M&M, whatever, I don't know. You make up a nickname, come on. Return of the Mac, I thought we've had one of them already.
We've had one of them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, haven't we? So he, and also, he was able to get to the rim and score and pull up and make shots. And they're a really nicely balanced team, Manchester, but Glasgow, I don't know what Jordan Johnson has for breakfast, but I think, if I was to have a vote on, I'll do a poll in my own head, and I do them often, about which of the BBL players currently in the place in the league is most likely to have had 3 shredded wheat. It's him. He doesn't seem to get tired, and towards the end of the game, he put the game away. Everything else, Manchester, the 2 big Americans are iffy. I'm not sure he's that comfortable with both of them, Artisan and Lewis. They're struggling to really impact the basketball game. But the point guard and McKnight are fine. And again, Josh Steele and Jordan Whelan are doing what they do.
Did Will Saunders play for you? Is that one of them?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, that's just good. Just looking here because I've got Will Saunders 5, and suddenly, there's one of them
in the trophy final.
There we go.
Trophy final at Glasgow before COVID. Played 7 games for us. And by the way, glad to see him back because he wasn't healthy at that point. He hadn't played for a long time. He did us a great favour by being one of the 6 guys who won the trophy for us that night, that day. And I'm glad that he's back and glad that he's able to have an off season and to actually be playing meaningful minutes, because Will can shoot. There's no question about it. He's a stone cold shooter. Sometimes I'm not sure he knows how good a shooter he is.
Well, I was going to say that Minnie made 3 threes in the 3rd quarter, and 2 of them was in a 12-2 run that they went out to a 57-66 lead. But it was Saunders then who had 5 in a 7-1 run to cut it down to 3, and then early in the 4th quarter, I mean, Jason was suggesting it was a finger, and that Minnie went out of the game with. And if it was, because it was so long, you can't see his finger, but it looks like a dislocation given the length of time that it took to get him off the court.
Well, try and put it back. I hope not. Well, dislocation is probably better than a break. For basketball players, are awful. But they have this little bit of depth about them, as I say. That's probably the part at which they're deepest with Gareth, who's able to come in and play. And he's a very, very good backup 4-man to have coming at the basketball game, because he doesn't have to chase the wings around anymore. He can just wait for Jordan Johnson to punch dribble in the middle, kick it out, or punch dribble down to the wing and kick it to the corner. And Gareth's just going to step in there and shoot it, and he's going to shoot 40 to 50% with those shots. So he's someone you're going to have to cover. He helps their spacing. Manchester just didn't quite know where to go for offense in the end. Armstrong made a couple of bad decisions. They turned the ball over a couple of times, and then Johnson took over. He made a couple of baskets.
I was about to say Glasgow knew where to go, Johnson.
Yeah, basically, and this is a guy who played 38 3/4 minutes in that game. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have known it at the end. because he was flying up and down the court. He has this kind of change of speed about him, which is unusual because it's a power. Because he's a power. You know, there's lots of quick guys who change speed kind of fluently, but he's a power guy. He's not helped by the kit, but we've talked about that. And by the way, Bristol's kit is close, but if Bristol had the sleeves, that away kit would be nearly as bad as Glasgow's. But it hasn't got the sleeves, so they get kind of a pass on that with away guys. But no, he finished the game for them, and then their defense and Manchester not quite knowing where to go, making a couple of bad decisions. Josh Steele over dribbled, over penetrated, should have thrown into the corner for a 3. You know, those are the kind of decisions that they're going to have to make better in close games. But against that, you know, Manchester, you know, killed at the end of the game last week against Newcastle. You know, so they had 18 points at the end. They made all the right decisions to got to the rim. So that's a growing team. That's a team who's going to get it right one week and maybe not right the next week. It's just like Glasgow are probably in the north. They're definitely the most mature team, I think. And I don't mean that in kind of a, you know, watching art house films kind of way, but more in a just in relation to where they are as a group, what they know about what they're trying to accomplish. You know, they fit. That's the team that doesn't have the duplication. They don't have any duplication in that team. They all fit together. How far they go, who knows? But they all fit together well, and none of them are looking at each other thinking, "I should be doing what he's doing."
I can't remember if I said it now, but Johnson had 7 in the 9-2 run that really sealed the game for them. McKnight with 27 led the Giants. 18 and 13 for Hillsman, and Johnson surely will get a triple-double at some point this season.
Well, he qualifies under he qualifies under the most important stat, which is he plays a hell of a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
so he's got, you know, so he's got the best chance, I think, and because most guards are always restricted by their rebounding, but he rebounds very, very well and pushes off his own rebound. He's a little bit like Crandall, rebounds, pushes off his own rebound, which is why they're probably closer to triple doubles than someone like Anderson at Sheffield or Fletcher at Newcastle would be, because he wouldn't get the rebounds. But there we go. No, it was an entertaining game. Enjoyed it. Fascinated by Glasgow.
Well, let's move on to the last game of the day. Kyle Williams is sure.
You're 5 for 5. Well,
there we go. So Cheshire Phoenix 85, Sheffield Sharks.
You got a list there, haven't you? You're going to.
No, I was going through the teams and I was thinking, who is it? And I actually forgot to go back to Newcastle because I thought I'd tick them off. But yes,
I forgot about Kyle. I remembered. I forgot about Kyle.
So still no Teddy for Cheshire. Big crowd in at the Knicks as well.
Slow down. Sorry, you can't say that. You can't say that to me, because it's the annual give a 8-year-old an air horn day, right? Which used to drive me ballistic. Right? And the only thing I can say nice about Cheshire in relation to the annual giving 8-year-old an air horn day is that they always put the kids at the other end behind Ben.
Yeah.
As opposed to behind me, because I think I'd have ended up, you know, there'd have been Trey Moore stuff going on, you know. Just whoa. Anyway, no.
Anyway,
I mean,
good crowd.
I love the fact that there's a good crowd in, but I think I get the impression that, you know, air horns aren't common in Ellesmere Port, and all the kids who get them of seeing them for the first time in their life, or the last time in their life, and will therefore blow them consistently and annoyingly throughout the entirety of the whole game, so you cannot hear yourself think. But anyway, moving on.
It sounds like a man whose friend gave one of your children an air horn. One birthday. Right, so back to the game. Sharks with a 7-0 run to lead 10-3 early on, and they maintained that for much of the first sort of first half.
Yeah, well, I watched the first probably 10 or 12 minutes, and then I turned over to watch the Glasgow-Manchester game. And I was surprised at half-time, because they were only up 6, 34-20. Turned back, it was half-time, they were up 6, 34-28. And I think that's possibly maybe Sheffield's Achilles heel, which is that they played very, very well in the first quarter. They moved the basketball. Retino got going, was attacking the rim, getting in the paint, finishing at the rim, making open threes. They basically outplayed Cheshire in all facets, and they were up, I think, 16-5, 16-7, something like that, and it went that way. But they didn't get any. Well, I think their problem I was talking about is that if they're not all at it and they're not playing to that level, they don't get any easy offense. So when things dry up, they don't have anywhere to go to kind of keep it ticking over. So that was a game where they were playing good defense. Albeit there'll be some, I'm sure there will be some comments about the 31 fouls that were called on them at some point. I didn't watch enough of the game to comment whether they were stuffed by the refs or not. But 31 fouls is a lot, but the other team only got 19 called. But they were playing good defense. The Cheshire was again struggling because they're still missing their point guard, and they were struggling to get any offense going early. And they should have been up by more than 6 at half time. On the
they were actually
15 or 20 at half time.
They were actually 10 up with a minute to go to half time. And then a minute into the third quarter, the game was tied. Knicks had a 10-0 run over the last minute, first minute.
Yeah, that is brutal, because that's when you want your timeout to make you. The worst thing in the world is dominate a half and going up 5 or 6. Especially when you've lost the last 2 minutes by 6 or run, 8 or run. It's even when you've been up 15 and you end up 8, it's awful, because the whole momentum over a game. I don't like momentum between games. I don't think there is any, but the momentum over a game is considerable. And that 4-0 run, 5-0 run just changes the way they look at the opposition look at the scoreboard, changes the way they feel about themselves at half time. It means that they come out aggressively, and it's nothing, is it? So yeah, tie game. I thought,
and then it was close, really, until the last few minutes of the game.
Yeah, and Sheffield ran out of offense, and to a certain degree, they ran out of players. They're really struggling in their front court rotation. Obviously, Delpesh fouled out with 8 minutes to go. Coke came back in and turned it over a couple of times and committed an offensive foul. He came out. Tuck went back. Tuck went in for him, so he was like the third choice 5-man. He subsequently fouled out on a slightly dubious call under the rim with about 2 minutes to go, Rotino's kind of finisher who isn't going to be a guy who's going to come and get the basketball and say, "Give me the ball, I'm going to score." Anderson's a setup guy, and I think it's going to be Kipper Nichols. I think it has to be Kipper Nichols with that team. And he made one big 3 down the stretch for them.
He made a 3 to tie it at 62, and then Bradley, talk about him every week. He had 5 of the next 10 points, 9-1 in favor of Cheshire, and they go from 62 apiece to 71-63 with 3:40 to play.
He's an interesting guy, Bradley. He's kind of he's kind of 2 inches. He's a 2-inch taller version of Jalen Hayes, a bit skinnier and a bit taller. And he had a couple of athletic moves on Friday night in Newcastle, which you saw in the flesh, going to his left and dunking the basketball. Cheshire's bigs outplayed Sheffield's bigs in this game. Ultimately, I think that's probably the difference. And Ocherobia was a factor at the end, but Bradley and Dickerson actually impressed me a little bit. I didn't see him, there wasn't much of him on Friday night. He played a little bit, and he's kind of raw, but he's long. He's not clumsy. He's a legitimate 6'9", 6'10", maybe. Long arms, and enough about him. And at one point he was joined with Defoe, which I quite like, because because if you're a rookie, you can't stand there waiting. You've got to be getting to the thick of it. You got to have that kind of personality about you to do that. That kind of 3 big man rotation, I think, was more effective than Sheffield's in this game. Now that might be down to foul trouble, and I can't say I watched all the fouls to see whether the fouls called were legit or whether they got the rough end of the stick. So it can be a one-off thing. But yeah, those 3 guys are good. Cheshire have got Teddy obviously is injured. I don't know what's wrong with him. Obviously he didn't play that many games for Bristol last year. He missed a couple of games anyway. They still got an American spot to fill if they want, because I think they signed the French guy and they couldn't get him in on the visa. So it'll be interesting to see whether they seek to use that, because they've got, at the moment, they've just got Wright, Bradley and Dickerson, from what I can see. But they're, it was a big win for them. That was a game, that was a big win for them. It gives them 3 wins. And Sheffield 2 wins. So basically puts Newcastle and Sheffield are in jeopardy now. The other 3 teams have got 3 wins. So that means Newcastle and Sheffield know that they're going to have to get to 3 wins. Or they have to be
before we get into the standings, why did Sheffield not let them dribble it out at the end there?
No, that foul at the end. Yeah, absolutely great. I didn't get that. Like.
Because, but even the last sort of 18 seconds, it was like 3 fouls or something.
I didn't get that.
I get it if it was if the head-to-head was there, a point either way, but they'd lost both games, so it couldn't quite work that out, because it seemed to be actually adding to the points difference rather than trying to take away from it.
You don't want to be putting the other team on the line to give them 3 points. Actually, there's about 30 seconds to go. I think there's a 4-point game, and Sheffield pressured the inbounds, and they threw it to right in the bottom corner of the court, right in the corner. And Kipper Nichols did the right thing. He immediately turned and left his guy and went to trap, because you've got the sideline and the baseline.
Yeah.
And he fouled.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. And I'm thinking, you've got a great trap there. You got a shot of that.
Yeah.
As it was happening, I was thinking, don't throw it there. Well, this is going to get interesting. And he bailed him out with a foul. And from that moment on, it was as you say, it was a foul shot game. But the one that got me was, I mean, with 18 seconds to go, if you're down 6.
Maybe, yeah, but the last one with 4 seconds.
With 5 seconds to go, you're down 6. You just give them a free point. And as we say, if all 4 teams end up on 4 and all 5 teams end up on 4 and 4, that free point could be important. Who knows?
Yeah. I know I've been saying don't dribble it out, but I would let the other team dribble it out. Would have been.
That's the point. Yeah, I mean, it's always the least worst option, and you don't give 3 points.
Wright ended up with 21, 5 and 4 because he got 4 free throws at the end, and Bradley got to 20 as well because he made a couple of free throws.
He kind of played a bit of point guard in that game, right? I think Akodo's more of Akodo's definitely a combo and a kind of attacking combo guard. I thought Wright handled the pressure well as the point guard. He really kind of got into it at the end there, and I thought he was impressive.
Williams led the Sharks with 20. So let's get into the table. So in the north, you've got Glasgow, Cheshire and Manchester are all on 3 and 2. Sheffield on 2 and 3, and Eagles have played 1 less, so they're on 1 and 3. But as you say, the pressure now is on Newcastle and Sheffield because the other 3 have got 3 wins from 5 games.
And who plays each other on Friday night?
I'm guessing it's Sheffield against Newcastle.
It is indeed, absolutely. So so that becomes a real jeopardy game. That's good, a real meaningful game, because if Sheffield win that game, then there's 4 teams on 3 wins, and Newcastle have 1 win, and with a maximum of 4 out there, and the head-to-head. So that's a really significant game this early in the season. That's good. I missed something from the Newcastle the Newcastle Cheshire game, which is Darius. I see you, Darius. 37-year-old, 1 dribble, taking off, dunking it, So I saw it. I can't let the game go without mentioning it. I see you. I think that's a prize. He's in line for the oldest dunker of the year so far. I'm not sure there's many who could beat him anyway.
No, I'm not sure there is.
Mike Tuck might be able to, but I think it's been a while since Mike got up there. But yeah, no, for anybody who didn't see it, yeah. Darius benefited from the fact that the rest of everybody else on the court was spread eagled on the floor, got a long offensive rebound, took a dribble, took 2 steps and hammered it home. So yeah, D, way to go, D.
So in the South group, and again, we've already kind of touched on it, London 5 and 0, Leicester 3 and 1, Bristol 2 and 3, Surrey 1 and 3, and of course Bristol have lost the head-to-head with Leicester and London. So it's going to be a challenge for them to get past both of them or either of them. In fact, I don't think they can get past London. So London and Leicester 1 and 2, depending on how their 2 games go, and then Bristol 3 and the winner of Surrey and Plymouth 4.
Yeah, talk about the the phony war that's going to be, isn't it? London and Leicester playing 2 games against each other, which really
Yeah, don't
are
matter.
just, well, kind of matter, but they matter because they're playing against each other, but they
Yeah.
don't really have any consequence in relation
No.
to anything. And that all that is going to do is just kind of build up a bit of enmity for later on in the
Yeah,
season,
yeah.
which is good,
Well, of course, if you remember back last year, they had that incredible game where Leicester found a way to lose at home.
Yes, that's right.
And actually, that did have, even though it didn't really matter in the cup group thing, it did sort of play out across the season. It was a thing.
Yeah, well, actually, Leicester were in the North Group last year.
Oh, actually, it must have been a league game then. Sorry,
Yeah,
my
I think in
mistake. Yeah, it
October,
must have been a league game. Yeah,
because
yeah.
the league game. So it was an early on league game where Parker made a jump shot with like 3 seconds to go and they turned the ball over, because we talked about that, didn't we? We didn't start in December, so must have been after then. But it means that two games between them, so they're getting to talk to each other a
They
little
did
bit.
play. They were all in the same group of death.
Oh, they were,
London,
yes, of course.
Newcastle, and Leicester. Yeah, they were all in the same group.
North and South, was it?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
So you're right and I'm right. So we'll agree
There we
to be
go.
right.
We'll both take credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I am correct. Just goes to show. It just goes to show anybody, if you've listened to the last hour thinking that these two know anything at all about what they're talking about, you're being conned.
I think what it really shows is we both remember Matt Cunningham. We can't quite remember last season.
It's
So
moments in time, isn't it?
yeah. I think on that note, we should probably leave it for the week. So Dave and I will be back next Sunday night to do it all over again. But for now, have a great week. Goodbye.